Hello everyone, we're going to go ahead and do the lecture tutorial for 2.3, which is free body diagrams with multiple objects. And so this worksheet is in Lab 7, but it also appears right after the lecture in 2.3. So first thing I want you to do, whenever you open up one of the lab tutorials to complete the assignment, I want you to go ahead and put in your name. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Jim Corkins. And that is a little fillable area, and you'll notice it's fillable because it's kind of grayish blue. And go ahead, and that's for you to fill out in text if you want. All right. So in this problem, we have to sketch a free body diagram. Okay. And we're going to be doing a force diagram on each object, object A, which is a larger mass than object B. And we're going to go ahead, and in this case, we're just going to be drawing arrows. Okay? So what I want you to do is, in order to do this, let me close this out and show you where we start out at, is you'll probably be starting out at this type of thing in Adobe Reader. Right? And there are a bunch of tools up here, and you'll use them for other things, but not now. This is for highlighting, and this is pen marks and signing, but a lot of these other tools that appear here aren't usable because it's Adobe Reader, and you might not have Adobe Pro. But if you have, everybody should have access to Adobe Reader, and if you do, you have access to this comments area. So I want you, in order to actually draw and fill out some things, that you don't have a fillable area. Fillable areas are this gray part that I want you to use for text, but this area is not fillable. So you're going to have to use the comments area. Okay, and when you click on this, a sub window will pop up and this area will pop out. So first off, go ahead and close this area because you're not going to be using that. And you're going to be using tools from up here. Okay, the tools that I mostly use, starting from left to right, is the text box. You could click in an area, anyone on this document, and put in a text box. The drawing tool, which it looks like a little pencil. The erasing tool. And also the shapes in this area. And in the shapes area, by clicking on that, you could draw lines, arrows, rectangles, ovals. You could actually create your own little connected lines. All right. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and click off that shape, is let's go ahead and begin by analyzing what forces are interacting with, what objects are interacting with object A and what objects are interacting with object B. So go ahead and list those out in your head, or actually write them down if you want, and pause the video. All right, we're back. So you should have thought about what objects are interacting with object A and what objects are interacting with object B. So we're going to go ahead and draw a force diagram. And as we're drawing the force diagram, we're going to be talking about those objects. So force diagrams are vectors, so we're going to use the arrow in the shapes tool. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to go ahead and let's talk about what objects are interacting with object A, what forces are acting on object A. So object A has a mass, so that means it's going to have a weight. That means the Earth is going to be pulling it down. So it also has object B touching it, and that means it's going to be pushing it up perpendicular to object B's surface. So it'll be straight up. And it's on a ceiling. And in this case, the ceiling in this case is going to be pushing down perpendicular to its surface. So let's go ahead and start drawing vectors to represent that. So the first thing I like to do is to draw the non-contact force due to gravity. And since object A is a larger object, you're going to go ahead and draw a larger vector down, Object B will be smaller than object A. I don't know by how much, but we'll just work with what we got. So I drew the arrow down, then I clicked off it to complete the vector. Now what I'm going to do is head up to the text box, click on it, and then click in an area right at the head of the vector tip, and a little text box will open up. And when that does, you'll notice this text area opens up as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put in mass, capital A, and G. And if you notice, the capital A represents the mass of object A times gravity is the G. And we could actually make this a subscript. So I'm going to subscript object A. You'll notice the text box is a little bit larger than normal, so I went and squeezed it down. And we could now move this around. So there we go. We've got the mass of object A. We've got the weight of object A labeled with a nice clean vector. Let's go ahead and do the second one. We have object B touching object A, pushing it up. So I'm going to draw an arrow representing that. And I'm going to make this a smaller arrow. I don't know how big that is, but I'm just going to go ahead and make it a smaller arrow. And I'm going to write it off to the side here because I'm going to have another... well, actually, I'm going to go ahead and make that a force. There you go. I just noticed that I forgot to put a negative m sub ag there. So if you make a mistake, you could actually just really quickly, it's easiest to delete the text box and then start over, I noticed. So I'm going to put negative m, capital A, G. And again, I'm going to make that a little subscript. And when you complete it, click off it and then click on it again. And now you can move it into place. And so it's pointing down, and down is negative y direction, and that's why I labeled it negative y. All right. Some professors don't like to put positives and negatives on their free body diagram. I like to. It makes it easier later on when I'm creating equations. All right. So box B is pushing up on box A. So I'm going to go ahead and put force box B. I'm going to make that positive because that vector is pointed up. Force of box B working on box A. And I'm going to subscript both of those. Click off it, click back on it, squeeze down that text box, and move it over into place. And there you go. So that is the box B working on box A. Now let's draw the ceiling force. Well, the ceiling would be pushing down on this. Even though it's a surface, it is also going to be pushing down. And I don't know by how much, but I'm going to go ahead and draw an arrow off to the side, right here. Maybe slide it a little bit closer. And so this is supposed to represent the normal force due to the ceiling working on it. And it will be a normal force. Surface forces we call normal forces. Since that vector is pointed down, I'm going to call it negative, capital N. Click off the text box, click back on the text box, squeeze it down, and then move it into place. And there you go. I've got all three forces that are acting on object A. I'm going to do that for object B now. All right. Object B has a weight, so that means it's going to have a mass times gravity pointed down. It's got a hand force touching it, so that'll be pushing up on the object. And since it's touching object A, it's going to have the force of A working on object B pushing down on it. So directly opposite. It's the force pair of this, Newton's third law. So let's go ahead and complete this. I'm going to go ahead to my shapes, grab an arrow. I'm going to draw my non-contact force due to gravity. And this is going to be a smaller force vector because it's a smaller object, less massive than object A. Okay, so I'm making its vector smaller than object A's. I'm going to put a text box. negative, since the arrow is pointed down, mass, capital B, G. I'm going to go ahead and subscript that. Click off the text box, click back on the text box, lower, make it smaller, and put it back in place. If you need to grab it again and move it around, you can click back on it. All right. Let's draw the hand force. The hand force is working on pushing up on the object. And again, grab an arrow. The hand force should be the same size. Oops, it should be, the hand force should not be the same size. I'm sorry, I misspoke. The hand force is pushing up on that object. Okay, click off it. Now I'm going to go ahead and label it. It is going to be force sub H. Oops. Don't forget to put a little plus there. Got to remember to do that. I subscripted it, clicked off the text box, clicked back on it to make it smaller. And now I'm going to go ahead and move it into place. And that is the hand force working on it. Let's go ahead and draw the box A working on box B. So I'm going to have to grab another vector. I'm going to go ahead and I need to make this force large. And so in this case, I want to make it comparable to its force pair over here, which is force B working on force B, box B working on box A. This case is going to be box A pushing down on box B. And I'm going to actually leave it right here, pretty close to this guy. And I want to make it about the same size as this other force, as best as I can. I'm going to move the hand force over just a squidge. Grab this. And I wonder if we could just duplicate this. I wonder if we could just duplicate this guy. Let's see. Oh, you could go ahead and click on a text box, copy it, bring it over here. Yeah, but we got to edit it somehow, and it's harder to edit, so that probably wasn't that useful. Going to have to do it the way I showed you before. Click on a text box. Since this vector is pointed down, it's going to be negative, capital F, and since it's box A working on box B, the A should come first. Even though it's the same force, it's got the same magnitude, we're labeling it slightly different to represent how it's working on it. Okay. What happened there? Let's go ahead and put that into place. Okay. So here's the first problem on that tutorial in 2.3. Now I would save this, and then so how you're going to go ahead and save it is you'll go all the way up to the top left and click save. And when you save it, I also want you to make sure you put your name into the as a part of the actual document. So try to put your name, your last name, as in part of the actual document, even though it's going to send me that it was submitted by you. I just want to double up and just make sure. So, all right, there are 3 other problems that you need to do on this. So go ahead and do all 4 in just the way I showed you. All right, good luck.